Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, obviously enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Thursday, June 11th, 2026. This is live stream 1333. So yes, threes are wild tonight. If you're not overly familiar with the show, very, very casual around here. Super, super casual, actually. Normally, we just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news. And then I'll normally tackle a topic related to our hobby and just, kind of riff on it a bit, engage with folks who are watching live. Tonight, something a little bit different. It's been a long, long time since I did something like this. We are going to kick back. I am going to share my review of Dungeons & Dragons, Ravenloft, The Horror Within from Wizards of the Coast, as well as some other goodies that Wizards of the Coast sent along. And I'm also going to tell you how you can get into the running to win a copy of the alternate cover edition that I've got. I will show you that a little bit later. But it's important to keep in mind, and those of you watching in live in chat might want to might want to point out to people if we have new folks hanging out in chat who are like, get to the review. When I'm doing the news, let them know this is our format. That's the format of the show. That's how it works. That's how things get done. Anyway, I should also mention, when you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we do have chat available. It's a live stream. Now, you must be a subscriber for at least 60 minutes before you can take part in chat. But if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Harvey Chuckles. Keith Ulu's with us. Michael Berry, Christopher Lundgren is also in the house, as is Semper Buffo. And we may have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D as our chat moderator tonight. I don't know. We shall find out. So we're going to dive right on into the news and get things rocking and rolling, because this August is going to bring Dragonbane Book of Magic. I've got the lowdown from Free League Publishing. The Book of Magic for the award-winning Dragonbane role-playing game offers players and game masters alike a deep dive into the nature of magic. It introduces no fewer than 9 new schools of magic: demonology, harmonism, illusionism, necromancy, symbolism, witchcraft, alchemy, enchanting, and I believe it's dracomancy, as well as new spells for the existing schools: general magic, animism, elementalism, and mentalism. In total, you'll find over 300 new spells, magical recipes, enchantments, and magic tricks in these pages. Each magic school is further detailed with information about its practitioners, its standing and reputation in the world, and the type of familiar its members typically summon. You will also learn where and how your characters can receive training in each school. The 138-page hardcover with PDF will carry an MSRP of $39.99, when it lands in stores on August 25th. I'm looking forward to these two new Dragonbane releases. We haven't seen much about Dragonbane as of late. And I think there's also some other titles that are a bit further off down the road for Free League Publishing. I just don't recall right off the top of my head what those are. All right, so let's see. Kevin R. Smith is with us. Kevin King follows him aboard. We've got Bamboozled, great crowd. Our good friend of the show, Agile Monk, is also here, as is Keithulhu. So, well, it looks like chat's off and running already tonight. Let's move on to our next news piece because it's a big one. Delta Green, the Millennium, has arrived in PDF, and I've got the scoop from Arc Dream Publishing. No future. The end has begun. As our darkened globe spins through the eternal night, the lasting legacy of the human race is nothing but a scream drowned out by the roar of destiny. This is your last chance to show the cosmos what it means to be human, the will to fight. Delta Green, the Millennium, lays bare Delta Green's dark and desperate past. It reaches into the corpse of the 20th century and digs deep, mapping in blood the terrain of our twisted pulp apocalypse. Brace yourself for the final world order. The insects from Shagai, alien parasites subverting the leadership of a nation. Pisces, the UK's attempt to harness the unknown. The army of the Third Eye, terrorists fighting a bloody battle against alien invaders. Gruzvate, a band of desperate operatives fighting darkness in the ruins of Russia. The Skoptsi, occult fanatics with an 800-year legacy. There's also the Outlook Group, where Majestic tests its elite. Phenomenon X, a syndicated TV news show that pokes its camera in all the wrong places. Tiger Transit, a former CIA airline, now in the clutches of an unnatural drug cartel, as well as the D-Stacks at the American Museum of Natural History, where Dr. Jensen Wu classifies the unclassifiable. We've got the Keepers of the Faith, traditional ghouls fighting lean and hungry heretics beneath the streets of Manhattan, as well as the Hastur mythos, a twisted skein of surreal destruction weaving its way through humanity. Delta Green, the Millennium, adapts much of 1999's Delta Green Countdown, one of the most acclaimed role-playing game source books of all time, to Delta Green, the role-playing game. Pair it with Delta Green, the Conspiracy, for a shattering campaign set in the dying of the Millennium. Pair it with Delta Green, Impossible Landscapes, and Delta Green, God's Teeth, to drag players through the fears of the Millennium's turn and into the modern day, where callousness and cruelty have turned the fruitful soil of the human spirit to rot. What a feel-good role-playing game, right, guys and gals? Hey, I love Delta Green, don't get me wrong, but this cell sheet info is like, wow, you're really bringing me down. Or surrender all hope. Hey, hell, let's just stick with it, right? Of sharing these terrors and read it for yourself, for the bitter joys of understanding and the beauties of a cosmos that only hungers and laughs. However you consume it, know that Delta Green, the Millennium, is here to consume you. Get used to the taste of ashes. Right now, you can pre-order the 320-page hardcover, which is slated for an October arrival with the PDF. It carries an MSRP of $60. If you pre-order, you'll get the PDF immediately. And of course, the PDF is also out right now over at DriveThruRPG for $34.99. Kevin King says, this sounds like one of those fluffy narrative games. Yeah, it's GM-less. Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. All right, let's see. Got a few more people popping on into chat. Kathy Evans is with us. I see Danny Gable has popped on in. Golden Monkey is with us as well, who won last night's contest. Well, the live contest. And Tessie Trekkie with a super chat. Says, Haster, 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 Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. I think we're safe. Kevin R. Smith says that when they saw this Kickstarter all those years ago, they imagined the conspiracy as the X-Files and this as Millennium with Lance Henriksen. Is that how it's pronounced? For some reason, it didn't sound right. Didn't seem to flow properly. All righty. Hey, and the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is popping on in, writing out some more storms. Yeah, we've had some weather today. Miss Sarah D doesn't live that far away from me, probably about 15 to 20 miles. So we kind of get the same weather. And this afternoon was nasty out. All right, let's keep the news rocking and rolling because there's a new bundle of holding which has arrived featuring the Dungeonomicon from Raging Swan Press. And I've got the deets on the deal. Game Master. Jumpstart your tabletop fantasy role-playing campaign with hundreds of pages of system-neutral tools and tables in this all-new Dungeonomicon bundle from Raging Swan Press. Want to run your own fantasy adventures, but you lack the time to prep? Think of these backdrops as theater sets before the cast arrives. Grab one of more than 30 fully detailed, self-contained, system-neutral adventure sites in the Dread Dungeonomicon. Stock the dungeon with monsters, treasure, trinkets, and trash from Thingonomicon 2. And set up your player's base of exploration with any of the 4 towns in 4 volumes of village backdrops. At the gaming table, keep the miscellany of many things handy to drop in colorful characters, monsters, and treasure as needed. You're good to go. For just $17.95, you'll get all 8 complete system-neutral source books in the Dungeonomicon collection, which has a retail value of over $100, as DRM-free PDFs, including the Dread Dungeonomicon, plus its markdown files, the Thingonomicon 2, a sequel to the original, well, take a wild guess, right? Thingonomicon. So, right there. All 4 volumes in the GM's Miscellany, Village Backdrops, volumes 1 through 4, and a collection of Raging Swan's Sunday supplement blog posts, the miscellany of many things. These savings will run through June 24th. One of these days, I really do need to maybe reach out to Raging Swan. Their stuff always looks cool. Always looks really good. Now, I know that a vast majority of their releases, I believe, are PDF. I know they've got print stuff as well. But, maybe I'd talk to Sammy. Oh, hey, I should also mention, in case you didn't know, there is a new correspondent with the Gaming Gang. Eric Benson shared his review of Altered State for the Index Card role-playing game. Popped up last week. So we'll see what happens. Our correspondents outside of Sammy, I must be a taskmaster or something. Because they don't always hang out too long. Actually, the reality is they realize, hey, you know what? Reviewing stuff isn't easy. It's just not. DB is with us tonight saying, sup, nerds. I guess we'll have to kick DB out. Coming in here and insulting everybody. So Kevin R. Smith says he thinks the Dread Nomicons, because there are different ones, are actually in hardcover as well. Huh, that'd be cool. Like I said, who knows? But I might reach out one of these days. All right, moving right along. Now available in print and PDF. We got more system agnostic goodies. It is an infinity of ships. And I've got the lowdown from 72 stations, or it might be stations. Although company name on the website says 72 stations. But regardless, an infinity of ships is an expansive toolkit for creating truly unique spaceships for your science fiction tabletop role-playing games. Featuring dozens of ships illustrated by Rob Turpin and over 150 pages of tables, generators, and adventures, this gorgeous hardcover book is the perfect resource for spacefaring GMs and players alike. If you purchase the physical book, you will also get the digital pack. So not only does that include the PDF of the book, it also has, I want to say, like really large sized images as additional files and stuff. So you'll also get spaceships, beautifully illustrated and full of flavor, ready to drop into the action of your favorite system. Tables covering everything from ship names and classes to experimental tech, AI personalities, far future music genres, and strange robot crews, as well as adventure. One-shots, adventure seeds, encounter tables, and other ship-centric shenanigans to intrigue and engage your players. The 156-page hardcover with the digital pack and PDF carries an MSRP of $35, while the PDF alone is available for $20. Danny Gable says, Mothership is calling out for this book. Chicory Coffee is with us in chat, says station, like Bill and Ted. Station. Nice. Boomerang Dan Webb is with us. Taco Loco is back once again. So welcome, everybody. Let's wrap up with our final news piece. Following a successful backer kit run, my friends over at Kobold Press have released the PDF of Hastening Doom for 5th edition. Here's what I know. Adventure runs deep. From kobold muck pits down into the heart of a hellish kingdom, Hastening Doom is a sprawling 6-level mega dungeon from the master dungeon crafters at Kobold Press. Adventure across rolling acid pits, crack extra-dimensional puzzles, storm infernal temples, and try not to wake the cave dragon. Within Hastening Doom, you'll find bizarre death and astounding foes in an evocative old-school dungeon crawl for characters levels 1 through 12 for the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Expect devious traps, challenging monsters, and plenty of glorious loot. This adventure fits neatly into your ongoing campaign or sparks a whole new game night. Bring a torch. Hastening Doom, it's a long way to the bottom. Right now, the 64-page PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $14.99. I believe there's also an additional map and token pack. It's indicated over on Kobold Press's website. I didn't necessarily see it over at DriveThruRPG. That is supposed to be available for $14.99. So I'm not real sure what's up with that. I thought that Hastening Doom is supposed to be a soft cover by way of the backer kit, because I recall sharing the news of the backer kit project back in the day. So I didn't see where you can pre-order this yet. So maybe I just happen to get, the info like really early before because it's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual for me to get like a press release sent to me and the publisher hasn't finished the web page yet. You see that a lot, actually. So I don't know, but hey, just telling you, the PDF is available over at Drive-Thru RPG. Musgrab is with us tonight, saying, "Woo! I get to watch live again." Well, welcome aboard. Good to see you again. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, Storytellers Vault, Wargame Vault, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on most sales. And those commissions really do add up, help keep thegaminggang.com around. And speaking of that, I actually went to my registrar for the website because I think it's September that the domain would run out. So I renewed for 2 years. So at least we know the website, knock on wood, is going to be around for a while. I might not, but at least the website will. Well, no, that's not true because I also had to pay the hosting company on a monthly basis. So anyway, but hey, the domain name will be around. I'm not planning on going anywhere. Anywho. So if you happen to enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet in other ways, you can do so first by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Ooh, that's good. And you can become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find information about that down in the show notes. Also, in those show notes, you'll find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Yay. Hey, speaking of our Patreon, on all our live streams, I'd like to give a shout out to our Patreon members. So, big tip of the cap to Ben Oathwaite, Caval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzek, Peaceable Porcupine, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Letman, Gustavo Cavallo, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Far Drift, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, the Madman, Flint Fireforge, and Agile Monk. Thank you very kindly, folks. It is vastly appreciated. Also, want to mention our winner of last night's core book for Vault 5 Victoriana. Let me jump here real quick. I actually selected the winner and then forgot to jot it down. Nice. Hang on. And then, of course, I've got the camera here blocking the area of the big screen TV that I use. So hang on. Did it? Hey, this is great content, right? That's what you get when it's a live show, huh? All right. So I just have to, shake my memory banks. Jeez, what the hell's wrong with you, Jeff? It's memory bank for crying out loud. Weirdly enough, wait a second. I honestly hate the way that YouTube kind of like filters the various different comments and stuff. All right, let's see where it was. There you go. Creative Muffin is our winner. So, if you happen to be watching, where you can collect your prize, let's get rid of this window there. To collect your prize, simply email Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. If you have a hard time with that, just go over to thegaminggang.com. You will see there's an email Jeff link up top. Anywho, so email me from the email address, your Gmail account that's associated with YouTube, and I will get you a link to your copy of Victoriana 45E. Okay, let's see. Mark Hawkswell's with us in chat. Straight Kismet's popped on in. Chris, I already talked to Chris Lundgren. Chris Lundgren asked, would I consider looking at the horrified Ravenloft board game at some time in the future? I mean, it's Ravensburger. I mean, it's a really lightweight game. Horrified overall. Elliot's got the first one that came out. In fact, I think, didn't they do a Disney one? Because I think he picked up he's a, Disney fan. Almost fanatic, I would say, but so I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, no, I'm not going to go buy it to review it. So, and I've never had any sort of relationship with Ravensburger in the 16 years of running the gaming gang. So when we were mainly board games and everything, still never really had anything cooking with them. So the answer, a roundabout way of getting to the answer is pretty much probably no. All right. So normally we would kind of chat a little bit, some little random musings and stuff like that. But tonight we are going to be diving on in. I'm going to share my review of Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft: The Horror Within from Wizards of the Coast, as I bite the inside of my cheek in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time. Well, is it time? Yeah, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
We're happy to have you with us this evening and want you to enjoy every minute of your stay here. And while you relax and stretch, visit our concession where you'll find something to please you. There are ice-cold drinks, delicious sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Here are 6 safety hints to keep in mind whenever you drive. Fasten your seatbelts before you start. Check your brakes. Make sure your brake lights, turn signals, and headlights are working properly. Maintain 1 car interval for each 10 miles of speed. Avoid panic stops. Drive within the posted speed limits.
This must be the bad guy's hideout.
The master of deductive reasoning.
Okay, listen up. The movie starts at 7:30. We walk in late, smoking, talking, and throwing trash.
That's real offensive. The people in the theater will be disgusted.
So that's the plan. They're going to try to ruin the movie for everyone else.
What are we gonna do?
I've been saving a special Bigfoot trick for just such an occasion.
Aha! It's the old saving a special trick. Come on, make way. You got your face.
Last door on the left.
Oh, this is it. Okay, we're here. You can start the move. What's this? This is your theater. You don't think they'd let you in with the grown-ups, do you? Bigfoot, what are you doing here?
Stamping out abominable behavior in movie theaters.
Another fine mess.
Enjoy the show, guys.
Yeah. Ooh, nice day.
You'll like this new car. Yeah? It's got a built-in maker for Wilkins Instant Coffee. Who needs it? Well, you can't sell them all.
In another time, it was hidden. Its power has been growing.
I had the strangest visions.
The tremors are growing in frequency.
Now, an unknowing world
Life begins anew.
has awakened its curse.
The orb is mine.
What should I tell my people?
Tell them to flee. It will kill us all.
Beric, it is your duty to lead this quest.
Start with Lux. No one in Ishmir is more ferocious in battle. For wisdom, there is Dorian, a cleric.
Sorcery must be fought with sorcery.
There's always Ormelian.
The elf wizard.
If secrecy is the goal of this quest, no one is more stealthy than Nim. It's a trap! What chance does Ishmir have against me?
When the corruption reaches your brain, you will be reborn as one of the undead.
I will see them all burn.
Yes, we've all heard that one before.
I will rain down my revenge.
Good times. You cannot win.
Wrong. Kill them all. Drain their lives.
Ah, yes, classic Dungeons and Dragons film. Hey, come on. You knew I had to do something for D&D as far as our brief intermission. Yes, and those of you who watch religiously, I did recycle that brief intermission there. But still, real quick, let's see. We also have, I just saw somebody. Oh, there we go. Valimir Cleaver is with us in chat. I always try to say hello to everybody when they pop on in. All right. So we are going to be taking a peek at Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within. A few things I want to mention. Number one, I normally do not do live reviews. In fact, it's probably been a couple of years at least since I did one. Because following along chat and trying to review something can, kind of lead to disaster. But the reason why I'm sharing a live review is because this arrived today and I'm going to be busy the next couple of days. So I won't be able, I have some other video already shot to share with you, but I won't be able to do my review. So I figured, okay, I'll tell you what, let's do it live. Wizards of the Coast sent me some other stuff as well, so we can take a peek at that. And then I can also share how you can get into the running to win the alternate cover edition of Ravenloft. So stay tuned for that. So I do want to point out I'm going to be ignoring chat for a while as I tackle the review. This is not going to be a super long review either. I'm not going to sit there and take a deep dive into everything in the book, because for one, we already know that Wizards of the Coast likes to send out, takedown notices for videos that share too much content. So I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to be sharing a ton of pages of this book, but we will focus on different things. Kevin R. Smith said, that's okay. We can entertain ourselves. There you go. All right. So I am going to be sharing my review of Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within from Wizards of the Coast. Now, there is the Ultimate Bundle, which is available by way of D&D Beyond. Carries an MSRP of $149.99. And that gets you the physical book. It also gets you digital. It gets you the items that I'm going to be sharing with you, as well as their digital equivalents, as far as I understand. Now, if you want to pick up the physical book itself, it is $59.99 as far as its MSRP. The digital edition over at D&D Beyond is $49.99. So let's swing out over to the other camera, because here I've got Ravenloft, The Horror Within for Dungeons & Dragons. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, the fine folks over at Wizards of the Coast were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, as well as everything else you're going to see tonight. So just want to point that out. Having pointed that out, you also want to keep in mind that neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's very important you know that. As I already mentioned, we're not going to look at each and every page of the book, and the reality is we are probably going to be looking at fewer pages than I would normally share doing a role-playing game review. Just so you know. All right. Let's jump on in. Also should point out that Ravenloft, The Horror Within, has both player-facing content and Game Master-only facing content, kind of mixed together throughout. So I would say, if you are a dungeon master, that the first chapter, even the second chapter, to a certain amount is okay for the players to see. But when I show you the breakdown, you'll notice that it's kind of like, okay, so how is this supposed to work? I myself really prefer when a book either takes all of the player-facing content and puts it right up front, or they have separate books. Well, that's not going to be the case here, obviously enough. I want to say this clocks in at 288 pages. So we are going to start off the book with an introduction of Domains of Dread. So I'm going to talk about the 16 different domains of dread that we have included in this book. The vast majority of them have been seen before. So essentially what we're taking a look at is the 5.5 edition Dungeons & Dragons versions of these domains of dread. We do have the edition of Cthulhu and the domain of dread of Innsmouth. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. But this first section here is focused on the player characters and character creation. And we do have some new subclasses. We've got new backgrounds. We've got some new species. We have dark gifts. So as far as the subclasses go, they're fairly interesting, I would say, to be very honest with you. We've got the Reanimator. Yeah, hi there, Herbert West. How are you doing today? So we've got things like the Reanimator. We've got a kind of like death-focused cleric who is They're to shepherd souls into the afterlife. Something I'll mention that a lot of the character information here, the assumption is that the players are going to be good characters. Kind of surprising. I know that tends to be the focus, but I would have liked to have seen a little more as far as, well, what if the player characters are not necessarily good? There's just an assumption is what I guess I would say. Reading through this, you feel like there's the assumption that the players are going to be good characters, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. I know the vast majority of players out there who enjoy Dungeons and Dragons do not play as evil characters. I just like when it's offering, some other items for the baddies out there. So we've got that. Actually, my favorites of the various different subclasses is the Hollow Warden. It is a ranger subclass, and they draw strength and energy from creatures, supernatural creatures of the forest. And there's some pretty cool abilities that it's got as well. So we got a few of those. Then we get into our new backgrounds. Got to be honest, the backgrounds themselves are, they're okay. What always kind of throws me off a little bit is when we get the tool proficiency. And the tool proficiency, it will be like a gaming set. And it's kind of like, what does that have to do with anything? And it's kind of like, well, can't really think anything, any sort of toolkit that we would give them. So I guess they get a gaming kit. Next up, we'll get into our new species. So we have got there's 4. We've got the Dhampir, which isn't necessarily only the offspring of a human and a vampire, which is normally the case. It can also be someone who has not completed the transformation to becoming a vampire. So they've been bit by a vampire, but they just have not gone through the entire transformation into that. We have the Hexblood. The Hexblood are fey-blooded. So they have supernatural abilities there. We've got the Lupin, which is pretty much just like the Dhampir, except in this case, it's someone who's been bitten by a werewolf and they have not gone through the full transformation. And as far as they go, the Lupin do not have the ability to change to a human or animal. They're stuck. They're a hybrid of both. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we had the Reborn, which are reanimated dead. So think of your Frankenstein. I should say Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein. So we've got that. And then we get into feats. We've got these dark gifts, which are available when characters are creating or players are creating their characters. They have an opportunity to sometimes up to the dungeon master, choose a dark gift. They can earn a dark gift during adventuring. I'll be very honest. I found the dark gifts to be pretty lackluster, to be very, very honest. So next up, we get into the domains of Ravenloft, and there are 16 of these. And we will kick off with Barovia, Ravenloft. And one of the things that I want to mention here is that a lot of this content we already saw in Ben Richten's guide to Ravenloft. Now, it's not cut and paste, but I do want to point out that much of the information, not all of it, but much of the information that we have with these domains of dread is content that we've seen before. Now, I will mention, as far as those domains of dread that we had seen for 5e, they are fleshed out a little bit, but not a ton. So I'm going to use the Innsmouth domain of dread as an example of how these are pretty much laid out. So we will start off with Strahd and Barovia, and that is our longest as far as page count with the various different domains of dread. So for the most part, as we get a little further along, as we're going through the different domains, that you're going to find that they get a little bit shorter. So for the most part, on average, they're about 8 to 10 pages, but 2 to 3 pages of that is just full page artwork. So not a ton. All right, so let's get to Great Cthulhu and the Innsmouth. Here we go. All right. So kind of give you an example here. And something else I want to point out, I am going to try to continue to like lay my hands on pages like this, because one thing that Wizards of the Coast doesn't like is like a nice clear view of their content. Just pointing that out. So we're going to get information about the domain of dread. Who is its dark lord? What kind of genre of horror? And I gotta admit, this is one of the few that does not say gothic horror. Out of the 16, I think a dozen of them have gothic horror, and it's like, okay. The hallmarks of Innsmouth. So we've got cosmic horror creatures, invasive alien dreams, surreal locations, and warring cults. Talking about the mist, because the domains of dread are separated by these mists. If you're not overly familiar with domains of dread, they are not planes of existence, and they really don't have anything to do with each other for the most part. Although some of the domains of dread are kind of offshoots of Barovia, and some of their dread lords and important NPCs can kind of trace a history to Barovia. So, but they're not planes of existence, but they also really do not have any connection, or they're not really supposed to have a connection. So I should mention, outside it is pouring rain, getting some pretty loud thunder, and fairly close. So keep our fingers crossed that we don't lose power here. Just pointing that out. Okay. So anyway, so we'll get information about the domain, features of the domain. We'll get a map. It's got locations throughout that domain, and each location, important location, is going to get some descriptions down here. Some of them will get a little more fleshed out, but we're still talking about a paragraph. Then we get into Cthulhu. We've got our stat block for Cthulhu, and I am going to be very, very honest here. I hate their version of Cthulhu. You know me, right? If you watch this show, if you are familiar with the outlet, I've been running Call of Cthulhu for over 40 years. I don't know if the person who was assigned to create Cthulhu's stat block just simply took a peek at the Wikipedia summary of Call of Cthulhu, the story, and went from there, because it's really not like Lovecraft's Cthulhu. And to me, making a big deal about how Cthulhu returns to Dungeons and Dragons, although the reality is we have seen Cthulhu before, and I'm not talking going all the way back to deities and demigods. Uh-oh. We had the power flicker a little bit here, folks. Fingers crossed. Anyway, so I don't recognize this as Cthulhu. So as an example, so it's the way it's presented is that Cthulhu tries to like put quests into people's minds through dreams and stuff. Okay. They also have like in combat, Cthulhu's tentacle attacks. Like tentacle attacks. Are you talking about the ones that were like the tentacles on his face? What does he bend over to like slap people around with them? So I'm like, then we'll get more information about the people who live in that domain. And as far as the inhabitants of these dread domains, some of them are just regular folk. Some of them are actually supernatural beings. And some of them tend to be, like looking to be heroic. You know what? I thought I heard something leaking here. Hey, that's what happens when you're doing a live stream and then suddenly, it's like a cloud burst out there. It's weird. It was like sounded like water leaking on one of my lights, which is bizarre because I have never seen that before. All right. So anyway, so we're gonna get into like I said, information about the inhabitants. Like for an example, Innsmouth is mainly dark cults, and the cults are rivals. Very, very little to do with Lovecraft's stories, which that's fine. I mean, Cthulhu is public domain. There is no copyright on it. You can do whatever you want, but still. I think, in my opinion, Innsmouth is my least favorite of the domains of dread. Just being very, very honest. And it's because I'm familiar with the great old ones and such. All right. So anyway, so then the next thing we get into are adventures and campaigns which take place in that domain. And I find throughout this to be kind of disappointing because very, very little page space is devoted to the actual adventures. But that's kind of the 5e, or I shouldn't say 5e, 5.5e take on things now is the powers that be behind Dungeons and Dragons want to kind of push the idea that you can play D&D with very, very little prep. And it's like, okay. So let's go back because I kind of skipped past it. So we'll get into adventures in Innsmouth, and then it will kind of talk about, so here are some like key tenets that you might want to use. And then we get the campaign arc. So the campaign arc here is running from level 1 through 20. And it's just giving you an idea of what a campaign could look like that's set in this domain of dread. And that's it. That's all it is. So like levels 1 and 2, you wash up on Innsmouth and shelter in the village. Okay. So there it's a shipwreck. Okay. Then we'll get an example adventure. Depending on the size of the Domain of Dread's page count, we might get an adventure, and then we might get kind of a detailed encounter. There is no detailed encounter with Innsmouth. But this here, Vault of the Elder, this is the adventure. Right here, that is all the adventure. And it's like, the way the adventures are presented in 5.5 are just like bullet points, which is fine. That I don't mind that. That's okay. Agile Monk with the super chat. But I'm also going to go back to ignoring chat for the moment. So it's more like bullet points as opposed to like you would get like an encounter map, or you get a dungeon map and you have the keyed locations and stuff. No. So this is supposed to be, this information here is all supposed to take you through multiple sessions of adventuring. And like I said, I understand that, you know, the push here is, hey, we want to promote 5.5 D&D as being very, very low prep. Just jump right on in, start playing. I would love to sit in on a table with an average dungeon master looking to run an adventure like this. I think it would be rather bland. Hey, I'm just calling it as I see it. So, funny enough, my least favorite part of Ravenloft, The Horror Within, is what the vast majority of the page space is devoted to. And it's these dread domains. Let's talk a little bit about production quality, though. The paper stock is the heavier paperweight that we've seen with the 5.5 releases. So it's not that real super thin paper that we used to see with the 5e releases. Artwork throughout, I really like the artwork. We don't have any of the, you know, dwarves baking hot cross buns and stuff like that. We don't have any of that. The artwork throughout is for the most part supposed to be scary. There's a lot more blood than I was expecting in the images in The Horror Within. And I appreciate that. I like that. Something else I want to mention, we do have the stitch binding. So this is going to hold up very nicely. So here's an example of some of the artwork here. Creepy looking. So it's not, you know, nobody's holding your hand. Another point I want to make is there isn't a lot of hand-wringing about horror adventures. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, is that when we see role-playing games just kind of fall all over themselves about the fact that, you know, horror is supposed to make you uncomfortable. That's what makes things scary. When you watch a movie, when you watch a horror movie that's effective, it's because it makes you uncomfortable. Now, I'm not saying that you should freak people out at your game table and leave them, you know, like in a fetal position, rocking back and forth. But I appreciated that. Now, do they touch on it? Yeah, a little bit, but not to a great extent. So I did appreciate that quite a bit. All right. So moving on through, we go through our 16 domains of dread. Something else I want to point out with the Dread Lords, looking at their stat blocks, and I'll be the first to point out, when I had the PDF and I read through the PDF, I did not sit there and study stat blocks. But I did look them over. That's how I knew about Cthulhu. What? Tentacle attack. What? Huh? But I will say, it seems like the Dreadlords are weaker. I don't want to say that they'd be pushovers, but like Lord Soth. Once again, I am not familiar with Dragonlance. If you're curious about my history with D&D, I left AD&D in about 82, 83, read through a little bit of 4E stuff, and then reviewed 5E releases, and from there on out. So I don't really know much about Dragonlance outside of what people have told me and what I've stumbled across. So I don't have that same sort of affection for Lord Soth. But anyway, like I said, it just feels like the Dreadlords are not necessarily pushovers, but not as powerful as I would expect them to be. Then we're going to wrap up our Domains of Dread section here with a discussion about creating your own Domains of Dread. Then we'll get into a section here all about creating horror adventures. And this is actually probably my second favorite part of this book. So it's not all negatives. There are things that I really dig in here. Most of the character creation options I like. Some I thought stood out a little bit more than others, although I thought the dark gifts were a little on the underwhelming side, I guess I would say. I think the advice that's given as far as creating Domains of Dread and utilizing horror adventures, different genres of horror and what they represent. Although I got to say, I think I disagree a little bit with their take on Gothic horror. To me, Gothic horror is like Frankenstein. Frankenstein is Gothic horror. Is Dracula Gothic horror? I think it's on the cusp. But once again, that's kind of my take on Gothic horror. We do have new rules and new options for bastions, which I thought were pretty well done, and some interesting additions to your bastions. Here's more information about creating Domains of Dread, talking about the various, here we go, here's the different genres. So we've got like dark fantasy, and then we've got like ghost stories, cosmic horror, the aforementioned Gothic horror too. Then we'll get into our bestiary, which is my favorite part of the book. Now, some of these we have seen before. There are some new monsters, and it's my understanding that we've got some monsters returning that weren't in 5e. And which one was? I think the Boneless. I think the Boneless didn't have the. I don't think they were around for Ravenloft or 5e. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is my favorite part throughout. And this is a good, solid bestiary. I really like the artwork throughout. Very nicely done. And a good mix. Here we go. We got the Migo. Funny enough, the Migo are more similar to Lovecraft's Migo and like Call of Cthulhu Migo than Cthulhu is in this book. But I digress. So just giving you a peek through the last of this. And then we finish with our deck, our Tarokka Deck. I got to be honest, I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. That's how it's spelled. That's the way it's supposed to be pronounced if you were going by the way it's spelled. If it was Tarokka Deck, I don't think it would have 2 Ks. It would only have 1. So, anyway, but like I said, as far as the bestiary of that, I do dig it. Somebody I just saw in chat said they're talking about who made the stat blocks, did a horrible job. Lord Soth sucks. I just mentioned that I found the Dreadlords to be to come across pretty weak, to be honest. All right. So as far as my review goes, we'll kind of stick to my format. Production quality, pretty solid. It's far better production quality than we saw with the 5e books that had the really, really thin paper. As far as the contents themselves, there are parts of this that I think are really nicely done and were very interesting to read. Mostly the bestiary, as well as the GM facing or dungeon master facing content, as far as creating the Domains of Dread, the different genres of horror, and advice for running horror adventures. I like that, as well as a good amount of the character creation info, the new species, the new subclasses. Backgrounds, they were fine. And once again, I thought the dark gifts were a bit underwhelming. The major portion of this book is really my least favorite of all of this, and that is the Domains of Dread. And if we take Innsmouth out of the equation, because I'm like, I don't know who wrote this, but it's somebody who's really not familiar with Lovecraft's work. But if I take the other 15, I find it kind of disappointing. Personally, as a game master, I would have liked to have seen maybe 8 Domains of Dread with 20 pages devoted to each. And I know a lot of people out there are like, well, Jeff, that means it's just all a bunch of fluff. I don't agree, because a lot of the content in here, as far as the Domains of Dread, just simply feels like it's like a primer, or as some people like to pronounce it, a primer, that we don't get a lot of detail. Like we get the Domains of Dread and then it's like, oh, these are places of interest. And some of the places of interest get a sentence. So like I said, I honestly feel that, how would I put it? Because all in all, the book is fine. But I got to say that this whole concept of, oh yeah, 5.5 D&D is real low prep, really easy to jump on board. Here you go. Adventures are now kind of like bullet points. Then you just go get your stat blocks, because that's super convenient to do that. I disagree with it. And I don't really think it leads to memorable adventuring at your game table. And like I said, I know a lot of people think it's just fluff, and I know that it's like the push that Wizards of the Coast has is, oh, everything's so easy in 5.5. Just doesn't come across as very memorable. I don't want to say it's lazy, or that Wizards of the Coast is kind of like holding back on content. I don't want to say that, but it does feel a little underdeveloped. And there are some Domains of Dread that, yeah, okay, they were in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, but that didn't mean you had to include them in this. Some of the domains are so similar to each other that some of them seem to only exist because of the Dreadlord, as opposed to the actual domain being something very unique and stands out. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that all these Domains of Dread are lame or boring. No, there are some cool ones. I mean, Barovia is pretty cool. I like that. It's actually got the most page space devoted to it. There are a few others. There's one, it's kind of Egyptian mummies and kind of Egyptian horror and things like that. So we've got one that's kind of like the Mask of the Red Death. So a lot of it should be very gothic horror. So it's got a lot of social interaction and nobility and stuff like that. I think that would be a blast. So once again, I'm not trying to say that, oh my gosh, this is just awful as far as the Domains of Dread. I just feel that it just comes across to me as someone who plays and runs and reads other role-playing games. It feels underdeveloped. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within, a 6 out of 10. I will give it a recommendation. It's just not a very hearty recommendation. But once again, you got to keep in mind, for anybody out there who's going to be upset about the score I just gave this is not a Dungeons and Dragons channel. So we tackle a vast number of role-playing games here. So a lot of times when I'm reviewing something from Wizards of the Coast, I'm not comparing it with other Wizards of the Coast releases out there. I'm holding it up to other role-playing games as a whole. So just the saying. Now, moving right along. Like I said, it's not terrible. It's just kind of, it's like sort of like fine. If you want to win this copy of the alternate art cover, going to make it easy for you, like I normally do for these contests. So I want to give folks who are watching on Memorex after the fact an opportunity to get into the running. So it's not going to be a live giveaway. But what you need to do is be a subscriber to the channel. Hopefully you give a thumbs up to this video. And then the major portion of this is down in the comment section. I would like you to let me know, what is your favorite domain of dread, or what domain of dread would you be looking forward to the most in the Horror Within, and why? And then I will randomly select one commenter, and then I will reveal the winner a week from tonight on the live edition of the Gaming Gang Dispatch. So there you go. All right. Now, we've got some other goodies that were sent along that we're going to take a very quick peek at. So I have got the Tarokka Deck. Like I said, once again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's got 2 Ks. We also have the Dungeon Master's screen, and we have a map pack. Now, all of these are parts of the Ultimate Bundle that you can order over at D&D Beyond. And these are all $24.99. So the reality is that that Ultimate Bundle isn't necessarily a bad deal. It's, $150, but it does get you the physical book, gets you these, gets you the D&D Beyond edition of it. All right. So Glint of Hope says, keep the Ravenloft alternate cover. I wouldn't want that art disaster for free. Hey, I get it. We have folks hanging out in chat who are not Dungeons and Dragons fans. They're not Wizards of the Coast fans. That's fine. It's okay. Remember, you enjoy what you want to enjoy. My issue with people is when they just rip on stuff, just to rip on stuff. Most of the people who whine and bitch, and I'm not saying this is a glint of hope. I'm just saying most people who whine and bitch about stuff, as far as role-playing games, they spend more time bitching about stuff that they can't stand as opposed to talking about, hey, this is what I like. And this is why I like it. So, me personally, I think most complainers should like gamers, rather than sitting there talking about, man, I hate that, blah, blah, blah. Should focus more on, hey, you know what? I love this game. And because a lot of times that is why they really dislike other games or publishers or whatever, is because they are major fans of some other game or an earlier edition of that game. So anyway, a lot of folks have popped on in, I think, in chat that I've not had a chance to say hello to. So Zrodin's with us. Old Man Milo is back with us again. Laconic Lane, the aforementioned Glint of Hope. Captain Infinity, Time Travel Police. I think I may have said hello to everybody. Yeah, I think so. If I haven't said hello to you, I apologize. I always try to say hi to everybody. All right, we're going to swing back over to the other camera because we're going to take a look at these other items that Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send along to me. And the lens I am using is a set length. So I'm not going to be zooming in and stuff like that. So we've got information about how to use this deck. And then we got the deck, and of course, there are tarot-sized cards here. Move this out of the way. I'll tell you one thing, that the last time Wizards of the Coast released a Tarokka deck, man, the card stock on those was absolute trash. And a lot of them were already like chipped. Okay. So I think there are 54 cards here. First thing I'll tell you, wow. That is some really solid card stock. And yes, the Tabletop Scholars joined us, asking, are these tarot sized? Yes, these are. So they all have the same backing. And I do believe it's a 54 card deck. So we'll just take a look at a little bit of the artwork here. So we do have different suits. That's kind of a blue and purple. The Avenger. Paladin. The Soldier. The Mercenary. The Berserker. And then we have the Wizard. So this is blue. So this is a blue suit. The Elementalist. So fairly abstracted artwork here. Then we've got the Swashbuckler. The Guild Member. The Miser. And we've got the Priest. The Anarchist. The Charlatan. The Bishop, the Traitor. The Dark Lord. Looks like that's kind of a, trying to be a combination of different, no, maybe not. Maybe it's just, because I was like, is that a helmet? Is that a helmet that Strahd's wearing? And then it looks like maybe these are kind of like backing cards to kind of protect your deck. All right. Well, like I said, some really, really nice card stock on these. So Zrun points out, 4 suits and a major arcana. Yeah, I guess that's what you were looking at. Nice. And nice tuck box here. So fairly thick. So that'll protect those pretty nicely. All right, next up, let's take a look at the map pack. Once again, this also carries an MSRP of $24.99. And if memory serves, I think there's 5 dual-sided maps in here. Adventure awaits! Laconic Lane says, these adventures are embarrassing. All right. So this is also a token pack too. All right, that's nice. Dual-sided, yes. So we've got a couple of punch boards. Fairly decent as far as our card stock there, as far as tokens go. And then we have the paper maps. They are simply paper, just so you know. Although, as you can see, because you get the sheen, the glare coming off, they are treated. So these are 4x2. So a little bit larger. Is it? Let's see. I don't know. I was going to say, feels almost the same size as the Paizo ink flip maps, I should say. So Zoran says, oh my God, I hate that tier box. They don't even put summary images on the outside, so you don't know what you're getting. All right, so that's one of the maps. Here's another one. Is this underwater? No, maybe not. So these maps are for the adventures that are contained within the horror within. It's kind of cool. Detail's pretty solid on these. I'll tell you what, they look to be a bit more detailed, a little more sharp than the Paizo ink flip maps. Looks like that's a temple of some sort. Alrighty. And one more. Oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. We got two more. But yeah, as you can see, this has really nice detail. I got to be honest. I wish it was on the same sort of cardstock as the flip maps are. I mean, like I said, this is just paper. Yes, granted, it is treated, but it is still just paper. All right. So I could see these getting crinkled up and crumpled up fairly easy. Glint of Hope says, it's kind of weird. The tokens are basic, don't have anything to do with the adventures in the book. I think even the maps don't connect. Funny enough, after I had said that these should tie into the adventures in the book, as I'm going through here, I'm like, I don't remember seeing these. It's not like I studied the maps, but I don't remember seeing this stuff. So yeah, it looks like these are essentially 10 maps for horror adventures. So yeah, kind of a weird product there. So I'm going to put it back into here, and then we'll take real quick a peek. Oh, screw it. I'm going to waste time trying to get them in there. All right, let's take a peek at the Dungeon Master screen. So it is landscape. I got to be honest. I never really find the Dungeon Master screen to be all that big a deal with D&D because it doesn't always. Just doesn't feel like it includes all that much information. I'm just saying. All right, so there is our artwork there. And as far as the cardstock, I would say it's pretty solid. I think you can get away with a little bit thinner Dungeon Master screen when you've got a landscape, obviously enough. All right. So that is the Dungeon Master screen. Once again, that also carries an MSRP of $24.99. I'm going to move this out of the way and then swing back over to this camera here. All right. So as I pointed out, I hadn't done a live review in at least 2 years. It may actually be much longer than that because they're not easy to do. So I apologize for pretty much ignoring people in chat while I was doing the review. But if I had been paying attention and answering questions and things like that, it would have been a disaster. So, let's see. We got a little time. So let's see what's going on with chat. Zrodin points out those maps won't survive a soda spill. Yeah, I don't see that. Laconic Lean says, yes, Jeff, we want depth, not empty volume. That's what I was talking about. That's why I would be curious to sit down at a table with an average dungeon master. I'm not talking about somebody who's brand new, and I'm not talking about somebody who's been, running role-playing games and role-playing games outside of Dungeons and Dragons for years and years. I just mean average dungeon master who's been around for a little bit, but maybe they only run D&D, and see how well those adventures in that book actually would play out. So, the Tabletop Scholar says, book is interesting, but meh on the rest. Did like how they approached Ravenloft in 5e. But, yeah, like I said, Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send me the review copies. I gave you my honest opinion there, which I always do. You always get my unvarnished opinion. Although, unlike most shows, I pretty much kept the foul language. Well, not even a minimum. I don't think I've said any curse word throughout. But yeah, I mean, I know there are people out there, they're not fans of Wizards of the Coast. They don't like D&D. It's okay. We're not a Dungeons and Dragons channel. If Wizards of the Coast wants to send us stuff, I'll share reviews. I liked the core books for 5.5. I wasn't blown away by them, but I think, the new edition, and it is a new edition, and I had talked about that before. Some of you out there may have been watching for a while, have been following the Gaming Gang, mainly the Dispatch. For a while, when Dungeons & Dragons 2024 came out, that I specifically said, this is a new edition. You should be calling this 5.5. And I took heat from people online. It's not a new edition. It's not a new blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm telling you, if you've read the books, it's a new edition. Not saying it's not backwards compatible. I am telling you it's a new edition. And then finally, and because even Wizards of the Coast was like, no, it's not a new edition. This is not a new edition. And then finally they were like, well, yeah, it's 5.5. Like, see, I told you. Here's something that I'm curious about, what you think of this. I heard somebody talking about Dungeons and Dragons over the last 20 years. And they said over the last 20 years, 90% of Dungeons and Dragons has just been recycled over and over again. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? They're kind of right. And I'm not knocking Wizards of the Coast. I'm not trying to say, because funny enough, and now I'm not going to go on too big a tangent because we're going to wrap up very shortly. But Marvel Comics. Okay, Marvel Comics in the 70s, which would have been when I started reading Marvel Comics, because I was a little kid. And I still even, it's funny, my brother still remembers the first comic book I got. But then again, he's also a comic collector. But anyway, Marvel Comics, their philosophy was that everything was a circle. And they would just, completely reboot stuff all the time. Now they do it because they want to sell issue ones all the time. But back then, the mindset of Stan Lee and the rest of the movers and shakers at Marvel thought that their audience were 12-year-old kids. And that once kids hit about 16, 17, they stopped reading comics. So it didn't matter if they retold stuff or if they just rebooted stuff, because the kids who are around reading their comics, 5 years ago, they're gone. Doesn't matter. And it took them a long time to realize that, hey, you know what? Most people reading Marvel Comics were far older than 12 years old. And I guess after I saw the person talking about how, actually I read it, talking about how D&D just seems, over the last 20 years, it just seems to be just recycled over and over. I thought, yeah, and probably because the powers that be at Hasbro figure, well, people probably played Dungeons and Dragons for, 4 or 5 years. And when we release a new edition, that means we got to, just bring out all the stuff that people want, as opposed to, oh, well, okay, we had a new edition. Let's really blow people away with this. Because if you think about it, this is essentially the first season for Wizards of the Coast as far as Dungeons and Dragons 2024/5.5. And it's, granted, okay, Ravenloft's popular. Something else I'd be curious about is, are the Domains of Dread that popular? I mean, I'm sure there's a few. I mean, I'm sure there's, a couple outside of Barovia. But don't most people kind of look at Ravenloft with the nostalgia they might have for Ravenloft? That's why people are always talking about how they want to see, settings from old get adapted to new editions of D&D. And I completely understand it. Some of them you're just not going to see, or at least not see in any way, shape, or form that resembles the original setting. Times have changed. But I kind of wonder, isn't the nostalgia for Ravenloft and the people who were calling out for Ravenloft to get the treatment for this new edition, aren't they really mainly just interested in Barovia? I don't know. I have no idea. Glenda Hope says they would say about 95% of D&D has been recycled. Ouch. Tell us how you really feel. Zrodin says, I would say 4 domains could be combined into one. They're too similar. I mentioned how some of the Domains of Dread are just, it's like, this is almost exactly like this other one. That's why I had mentioned, like, it's like 12 of the 16 Domains of Dread where it says the genre, it says Gothic horror. Like, okay. Agile Monk says, yes, that's right, Jeff. They just want Barovia. That's what I thought. I thought that was the case. But you got to remember, I was already gone from D&D. I was already into Call of Cthulhu and other role-playing games and being a forever GM before Ravenloft came out. So I remember seeing Ravenloft in stores, but that was about it. I mean, I remember the cover, it's like the classic cover from the first Ravenloft module, and that's about it. Semper Buffo says Barovia is the only one for them. Sweet. All right. I don't think I've really missed anything there in chat. Oh, Conic Lane says, Kobold Press's Night Hunters books have an opportunity to be awesome. Hopefully they step up. I really dig Kobold Press. The folks have never been anything less than exceptionally kind to me. And I mentioned this when I did a review of Kobold Press recently. Now, off the top of my head, I forget what it was. But it was within the past couple of weeks. And in my opinion, I think Kobold Press shines far more when they actually stick to their philosophy of adventures, as opposed to designing adventures so that they fit with the Dungeons and Dragons crowd. Because you will see some adventures like the new one I just shared, the news piece, Hastening Doom. That's supposed to have kind of an old school vibe to it. And it's supposed to be a mega dungeon and so forth. It's 64 pages, so it can't be that massive a mega dungeon. But still, when Kobold Press creates content that is aimed more at the people who enjoy like the Midgard setting and stuff like that have a little bit of an old school mentality, I think their stuff is so much better than, because even they're like Tales of the Valiant stuff. A lot of their Tales of the Valiant stuff that I've had an opportunity to take a peek at, and I have not had a chance to check out like all their adventures, because there are, I think, a good number of Tales of the Valiant adventures that have come out in their just PDF, so I have not seen them. But I tend to find their adventures to be fun and a little gonzo, a little hint of gonzo in there, not overly crazy or anything like that. But I don't know. And then sometimes Kobold Press will release stuff, and it's usually when they say it's for 5e, specifically when they say it's for Dungeons and Dragons, where I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying it doesn't stand out as much. And it feels like the creators are writing to a different audience than your traditional Kobold Press fans. I don't know. Just it's kind of how I feel. All righty. So once again, if you would like to get into the running to win my copy of the alternate art edition of Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft, The Horror Within from Wizards of the Coast, super easy. All you got to do, be a subscriber to the channel. Hopefully you give the video a thumbs up and leave a comment in the comments section telling me what domain of dread you find the most interesting or you're looking forward to the most and why. And then I will randomly select one lucky commenter. So I'm going to give you a week. So you have until 12 noon Central Time, a week from today, which would be June 18th, to get that in. And then I will give you, I will reveal the winner week from tonight on the live episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch. So Glint of Hope's like, no, I don't want that. Thumbs down. Glint of Hope kind of comes across as a crank. One of those, my opinion's the only one that matters. Glint of Hope says, I won't be home on June 18th. Well, it's not like I'm calling you on a landline. Oh, gotta be present to win. Just giving you a hard time. Just messing around. All right. Anyway. So that is it for tonight's show. Like I said, something quite a bit different tonight. Hopefully it was all right. Hopefully it made sense. But anyway, if you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company, especially when I was in the middle of the review, because I didn't want to get sidetracked by chat. So thank you kindly. Of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. And then, of course, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share review videos, which are standalone, it'll also inform you when my live stream, which you're watching right now, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. Central. Hopefully, not when I stream. Hopefully, YouTube will let you know. It's not all that great at that these days. Anyway, so enjoy the rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Have a great rest of the week and weekend. I will be back on Tuesday with our regular format of the show. So once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.